At 9:27 a.m. on December 13, 1943, 2nd Lieutenant Philip Adair pulled his Curtiss P-40 Warhawk into a climbing turn over Assam, India as 64 Japanese aircraft materialized through the morning haze 3 miles east, heading directly for his base at Denjan Airfield. The 23-year-old Adair had flown 43 combat missions with the 89th Fighter Squadron protecting the Hump Airlift. But this morning, he was the only pilot airborne. When the formation appeared, in the previous 8 weeks, Japanese raids on Allied airfields throughout Northeast India had destroyed 47 transport aircraft on the ground and killed 112 personnel. His P-40, nicknamed Lulu Bell and marked with the number 44, carried 650 caliber Browning machine guns and enough ammunition for approximately 12 seconds of sustained fire. The enemy formation consisted of 24 Mitsubishi P-21 Sally bombers escorted by approximately 40 Nakajima P-43 Oscar fighters arranged in layers above and below the bomber stream. Intelligence reports indicated that similar size raids in Burma had achieved 90% hit rates on undefended airfields. Below him, Denjan Airfield housed 14 C-47 transport aircraft loaded with critical supplies for Chiang Kai-shek's forces in China, a field hospital treating 63 wounded soldiers, and fuel stocks sufficient to support hump operations for 11 days. If the bombers reached the field unopposed, the damage would Allied supply operations over the Himalayas for weeks. The nearest friendly fighters were 38 minutes away. At their base in Jaw, Adair checked his fuel gauge. Full internal tanks, 180 gallons, approximately 90 minutes of flight time at combat power. The Japanese formation was 3,000 feet below him, moving at 240 miles per hour toward the airfield. Standard doctrine called for fighter pilots to wait for reinforcements when outnumbered more than 5-1. Adair had 64-1 odds. He could radio for help and shadow the formation until support arrived. By then, the bombs would already be falling, or he could attack alone and try to disrupt their bombing run. Adair pushed the throttle forward. His Allison V1710 engine responded immediately. The manifold pressure climbing to 54 in. The P-40 accelerated to 320 miles per hour. He positioned himself 4,000 feet above them. Bomber formation, coming at them from the south with the sun behind him. The Oscars hadn't spotted him yet. Their attention was focused forward on the target. He had one advantage: surprise. The Japanese pilots expected fighters to meet them near the target, not 20 meters out. Adair planned his attack vector. Hit the lead bomber formation first. Ignore the fighters initially. Break their bombing accuracy. Make them scatter, force them to abort the run. Can one P-40 disrupt 64 Japanese aircraft? Please like this video to see how this turns out. Subscribe for more stories and let's continue back to Adair. The lead Sally bomber group flew in tight formation. 6 aircraft arranged in 2 Vs of 3. Adair rolled inverted, pulled the nose down, and dove at the bombers from their 7 o'clock high position. His airspeed built rapidly, 360 mph 360. The P-40's Allison engine screamed at full power. Range closed fast. The bomber crew still hadn't seen him. At 800 yards, he opened fire. His 650s hammered, tracers arcing toward the lead bomber. Rounds walked up the Sally's left wing. Fabric tore. Metal sparked. The bomber's port engine erupted in orange flame. Black smoke poured from the cowling. The formation broke. Bombers scattered left and right, their tight V dissolving into chaos. Adair pulled up hard. 7 Gs crushing him into the seat and rolled right. 40 Oscar fighters were diving toward him. The Nakajima P-43 Oscar was one of the most maneuverable fighters in the Pacific Theater. Powered by a Nakajima Ha-115 engine producing 1,150 horsepower, it could reach 329 miles per hour at 13,000 feet and execute turning circles tighter than any American fighter. The Oscar's butterfly combat flaps allowed it to bleed speed rapidly in turns without stalling. Japanese pilots exploited this advantage ruthlessly. In the previous 6 months, Oscars had shot down 63 Allied fighters over Burma and northeast India. Adair's P-40N was faster in a straight line, but couldn't match the Oscar's turn rate. The Warhawk's Allison V171081 engine generated 1240 horsepower at 3000 rpm, giving the aircraft a maximum speed of 378 miles per hour below 12,000 feet. But in a sustained turning fight, the heavier American fighter would lose energy faster than the lightweight Japanese aircraft. Standard P-40 tactics against Oscars were simple. Never turn with them. Use speed. Hit and run. Extend. Away. Reset. Adair couldn't extend away. If he fled, the bombers would reform and complete their attack run on Denjan. He had to keep pressure on the formation. Keep them scattered. Keep them nervous. Even if it meant fighting 40 Oscars alone. The first 4 Oscars came at him in a loose finger 4 formation from his 10 o'clock high. Adair rolled left, pulled the nose up, and fired a 2-con burst at the lead fighter. 50 caliber rounds missed high. The Oscar broke right. Its wingman followed. Adair reversed, diving away to maintain speed. 2 more Oscars dove from above. He saw them at 400 yards, pulled into a climbing left turn, fired again, no hits. His ammunition counter showed 800 rounds remaining across all 6 guns. Approximately 6 more attacks at his current rate of fire. Behind the fighter screen, the Sally bombers were attempting to reform. 3 groups of 6 aircraft each were closing back into formation. If they achieved their bombing V again, they would press the attack. Adair had perhaps 90 seconds before they reached their release point over Denjan. He rolled out, shoved the throttle to the stop, and dove toward the bombers again. 8 Oscars followed him down. The P-40 accelerated to 405 miles per hour. In the dive, the Oscars couldn't match that speed. Adair opened the gap, pulled out at bomber altitude, and lined up on the right-hand Sally formation. Range 300 yards. He fired. Tracers converged on the lead bomber's right engine. The Mitsubishi HA-101 radial engine exploded. In a fireball, the bomber rolled right, streaming fire and debris. Its wingman broke formation to avoid collision. Adair kicked rudder, skidded left, fired at another Sally. His rounds punched through the bomber's thin fuselage skin. The P-21 had no armor protection for the crew, no self-sealing fuel tanks. Designed in 1936, it was obsolete by 1943 standards, but it could still carry 25 pounds of bombs, enough to destroy everything on Denjan Airfield. The Oscar fighters were closing again, 12 of them this time. Adair's fuel gauge showed 162 gall remaining. His ammunition counter read 650 rounds. The bombers were 19 meters from Denjan. He had perhaps 4 minutes before they reached drop range. Then his engine started overheating. The Allison V171081 was a liquid-cooled engine. Coolant circulated through passages in the cylinder heads and block, absorbing heat from combustion, then flowed through a radiator mounted beneath the fuselage. At combat power settings above 50 in of manifold pressure, the engine generated extreme temperatures. The coolant system was designed to handle sustained operation at those settings for approximately 20 minutes. Adair had been running at full power for 11 minutes. His coolant temperature gauge showed 230 degrees Fahrenheit. Normal operating temperature was 210. At 250, the engine would begin to fail. He had 3 options. Reduce power to let the engine cool, abandon the attack, and return to base, or continue fighting and risk engine failure over hostile territory. The Sally bombers were 17 miles from Denjan, still within bombing range. Still a threat. Adair kept the throttle forward. 2 Oscars came at him head-on. Closing speed exceeded 600 miles per hour. Both fighters opened fire at 500 yards. Adair saw their muzzle flashes. 7.7mm tracers walking toward his nose. He fired back. His heavier 50 caliber rounds carried more energy and reached farther. At 350 yards, his rounds hit the left Oscar's engine cowling. The lightweight fighter shuddered, broke left, trailing white. Coolant vapor. Its wingman followed. Adair rolled right and dove. His coolant temperature hit 240 degrees. The Sally bombers were 15 miles from target. 2 formations of 6 aircraft. Each had reformed into bombing Vs. The third formation was scattered. 3 bombers struggling to rejoin. Adair went for the lead formation again. 6 Oscars tried to intercept him. He dove past them at 390 miles per hour, too fast for them to follow. At bomber altitude, he leveled out and opened fire on the lead sally. His first burst hit the bomber's right wing roof. The wing structure failed. The outer panel folded upward and tore away. The sally rolled inverted and entered a spin. No parachutes. The crew rode it down. The formation broke again. Bombers scattered in 3 directions. Their bombing accuracy was destroyed. Even if they dropped now, their bombs would be spread across miles of jungle instead of concentrated on the airfield. Adair pulled up hard. His coolant temperature gauge showed 248 degrees. The engine was running rough. He could feel vibration through the control stick. Detonation was starting in the cylinders. Pre-ignition from excessive heat. If he didn't reduce power soon, the engine would seize. 8 Oscars dove on him from above. He saw them late. Rolled left. Too slow. 7.7 millimeters. Rounds punched through his right wing. Fabric tore. Metal buckled. 1 round hit his right aileron control rod. The aileron response went mushy. He needed more right stick pressure to maintain level flight. Another burst walked up his fuselage. Rounds sparked off his engine cowling. 1 penetrated the coolant reservoir behind the firewall. Green coolant sprayed across his windscreen. The engine temperature gauge climbed past 260 degrees. Steam erupted from the cowling seams. His oil pressure dropped. The Allison was dying. Adair chopped the throttle. The engine RPM fell from 3,000 to 2,400. Rolled upright directly at the Japanese fighter. The Oscar broke away. The American pilot was either insane or desperate. Either way, the Oscars decided not to engage. They turned east, toward Burma. Adair continued his rolling climb toward Naguli. His fuel gauge showed 83 gall. His oil pressure gauge showed 0. The needle had been pegged at 0 for 9 minutes. The engine should have seized by now. Connecting rods should have welded to the crankshaft. The fact that it still ran defied mechanical logic. The Allison was running on momentum, friction, and whatever microscopic oil film remained on its internal components. His altitude reached 3,000 feet, then 4,000. The base at Naguli was 21 miles southwest, approximately 11 minutes away at he maintained current speed. His coolant temperature gauge no longer registered. The needle had melted off at some point. Smoke still poured from the cowling, but the flames had died down. Either the fire had consumed all available fuel or the lack of coolant had somehow starved it. At 5,000 feet, Adair spotted Naguli. Airfield ahead, the runway, the tower, the revetments, safety. But he faced a new problem. His landing gear was hydraulic. The hydraulic system ran on engine power. His engine was producing minimal power and might quit completely any second. If he lowered the gear and the engine died, he would crash short of the runway with the gear down. If he kept the gear up and tried a belly landing, the impact might rupture his remaining fuel tanks and the aircraft would burn. He needed the gear down and locked before the engine failed. He reached for the gear lever. His right hand was shaking, not from fear, from carbon monoxide poisoning. The cockpit smoke had been accumulating for 14 minutes. He pulled the gear lever down. Nothing happened. The P-40's hydraulic system operated at 1,000 pounds per square inch. Hydraulic fluid, pressurized by an engine-driven pump, flowed through steel lines to actuators that extended and retracted the landing gear. With the engine producing minimal power, the hydraulic pump wasn't generating sufficient pressure. The gear remained locked in the up position. The P-40 had a backup system, a manual hand pump mounted on the left side of the cockpit. 28 strokes of the pump handle would manually pressurize the hydraulic system enough to lower the gear. Adair grabbed the pump handle with his left hand, keeping his right hand on the control stick. He pumped. 1, 2, 3, nothing. The gear stayed up. The hand pump required both hands for effective operation, but releasing the stick meant losing aircraft control. His damaged ailerons and elevator would immediately push the nose down. He reached behind his seat and pulled his lap belt loose. Wrapped it around the control stick, looped it through the seat frame, pulled it tight. The makeshift rig held the Stick in approximate neutral position. Not perfect control, but enough to keep the aircraft flying straight. He grabbed the hand pump with both hands and pumped hard. 5 strokes. 10. 15. At stroke 23, he felt resistance, hydraulic pressure building. At stroke 28, he heard a TH from beneath the cockpit. The left main gear extended and locked. The right main gear followed. 3 seconds later, the P-40 was now draggy. Gear down. Increased drag significantly. His airspeed fell from 160 miles per hour to 135. Still above stall speed, but not by much. The engine was producing perhaps 40% power. Now, barely enough to maintain altitude with the gear extended. Naguli runway was 7 miles ahead. 3 minutes. His vision, tunneling. Gray edges closed in from the periphery. Carbon monoxide poisoning was affecting his brain function. He shook. His head, focused on the runway. 6 miles. His engine temperature gauge, the one that still worked, showed 310 degrees, far beyond red line. Metal components inside the engine were expanding for heat. Tolerances were closing. Any second now, a piston would seize or a valve would stick or a connecting rod would snap. 5 miles. The tower operators at Naguli saw him coming. 1840 with smoke trailing from the cowling, flying erratically, gear down. They assumed he would make a normal approach. Lower the flaps, reduce speed, touch down on the main wheels first. Standard landing procedure, but Adair's flaps were hydraulic, too. With minimal engine power, he couldn't pump enough hydraulic pressure for both gear and flaps. The gear was down, the flaps stayed up. Landing without flaps meant higher landing speed, 120 miles per hour instead of 90. That meant longer landing roll. Naguli's runway was 4,000 feet long. A flapless landing in a damaged aircraft required at least 3,000 feet. Doable if he maintained airspeed. If the engine kept running, if he touched down smoothly. At 2 miles from the runway, his engine quit. The propeller windmilled to a stop. No power, no thrust. The P-40 became a glider. A very poor glider. The Warhawk's glide ratio was approximately 8:1. From 2,000 feet altitude, he could glide approximately 3 mi. The runway was 2 miles away. Theoretically possible, but is damaged. Aircraft had extra drag from the battle damage. Bullet holes in wings and fuselage disrupted airflow. His actual glide ratio was worse than normal, perhaps 6:1. He wasn't going to make that runway. He was going to crash short in the jungle. After surviving 64 Japanese aircraft, after flying inverted for 11 minutes after nursing a dying engine for 15 meters, he would crash 200 yards from safety because his engine quit at the worst possible moment. Then he remembered something from training, something his instructor had said about P-40 glide performance. Something about flying inverted. In a normal glide, an aircraft descends nose first, gravity pulling it downward while wings generate lift. But inverted, the aerodynamics reverse. The wings camber designed to generate lift upward when right side up generates downward force when inverted. However, at specific angles of attack, this reversal creates less drag than right side up flight. An inverted glide could theoretically extend range by reducing drag. The principle had been mentioned briefly during training. No instructor expected pilots to actually use it. Adair had nothing to lose. He rolled inverted at 1,800 feet, 1 mile from the runway. Blood rushed to his head. His vision reeled. He held the inverted attitude, watching the jungle pass. Beneath him or above him. Perspective became disoriented. The airspeed held steady at 125 miles per hour. The descent rate was 500 feet per minute, better than the 700 foot per minute he'd been experiencing, right side up. The tower operators at Naguli saw an inverted P-40 approaching, with landing gear extended. Gear down while inverted was aerodynamically wrong, structurally stressful. The gear doors designed to handle air loads from below were now subjected to loads from above, but the gear held. The P-40 continued its inverted approach. On the ground, a crew chief named Technical Sergeant Robert Martinez watched through binoculars. He saw the inverted aircraft, saw the gear extended, saw smoke trailing from the engine. His First thought was that a Japanese pilot had stolen a P-40 and was attempting to strafe the field. Martinez ran toward the nearest 50 caliber machine gun position. 3 other ground crew followed him. They reached the gun in placement and began traversing the weapon toward the approaching aircraft. Adair was at 400 feet altitude, half a mile from the runway threshold, still inverted. His vision was fading. Great tunnels closed in. Carbon monoxide and negative G-forces were shutting down his brain. He had perhaps 20 seconds of consciousness remaining. He needed to roll upright, line up with the runway, and land. But if he rolled upright too soon, the damaged controls would push the nose down and he'd crash short. If he rolled too late, he'd overshoot the runway. At 200 feet altitude, 300 yards from the threshold, Adair rolled right side up. The damaged aileron immediately pushed the right wing down. He countered with left stick, fighting the aircraft, forcing the wings level. The nose wanted to drop. He pulled back on the stick. The broken elevator cables gave him partial control. Not much, just enough. The P-40 descended toward the runway at a steep angle, nose high, wings wobbling. Martinez's gun crew tracked the aircraft. The P-40 was definitely damaged. Smoke poured from it. It might be friendly. It might be enemy. In 3 seconds, the aircraft would cross the runway threshold. Martinez had to decide, shoot or hold fire. He held fire. Adair crossed the threshold at 90 feet, descending rapidly. Too fast, too steep. The P-40 dropped the last 90 feet in 4 seconds. The main wheels hit the concrete runway hard. 7 grams impact. The gear struts compressed fully. The tail wheel slammed down. Metal shrieked. The right main gear collapsed. The right wing dropped. The wingtip hit the runway and dug in. The aircraft ground looped right, spinning 180 degrees, throwing up sparks and concrete fragments. It skidded backward for 200 feet and stopped. Smoke billowed from the engine compartment. Fire crews raced toward the aircraft. Adair sat motionless in the cockpit for 12 seconds. Then he released his shoulder straps, stood up, and climbed out onto the wing. His legs buckled. He caught himself on the wing roof. Ground crew reached him and helped him down. Martinez arrived with the fire crew. They opened the cowl. The Allison engine was destroyed, pistons seized, crankshaft warped, oil pan ruptured, coolant everywhere. Adair walked around the aircraft with Martinez. They counted the damage. 16 bullet holes in the fuselage, 7 in the right wing, 4 in the left. 1 round had severed the right aileron. Control cable completely. Another had punctured the hydraulic reservoir. A third had cut through 2 electrical bundles behind the instrument panel. The engine had sustained catastrophic damage from overheating and oil starvation. Every cylinder showed scoring. 3 connecting rods were welded to the crankshaft. The coolant system was destroyed. Lulu Bell would never fly again. But Philip Adair had saved Denjan Airfield. Intelligence reports confirmed that all 24 Sally bombers had turned back without dropping their ordnance. The Japanese formation had scattered 15 miles short of target. 40 Oscar fighters had escorted empty bombers back to Burma. 0 bombs hit Allied facilities. 0 casualties on the ground. 14 C-47 transports remained operational. The Hump Airlift continued without interruption. On December 16, 1943, 3 days after the mission, 10th Air Force Headquarters interviewed Adair about the engagement. He described the attack sequence, the inverted flying technique, the landing approach. Flight. Surgeons examined him. Carbon monoxide levels in his blood were still elevated. 72 hours after the mission, they determined he had been flying with severe poisoning for the final 11 minutes of the flight. That level of impairment should have rendered him unconscious. He had somehow remained functional through alone. On January 8, 1944, Lieutenant General Joseph Stilwell, commander of U.S. forces, China-Burma, India Theater, presented 2nd Lieutenant Philip Adair with the Silver Star. The citation read, "For gallantry in action against enemy forces on December 13, 1943, when Lieutenant Adair, flying alone, engaged and disrupted a formation of 64 enemy aircraft attacking Allied installations, continuing his attack despite severe Aircraft damage and personal injury, thereby preventing destruction of critical supply facilities. Adair flew 95 more combat missions with the 80th Fighter Group. He achieved ace status with 5 confirmed kills. On his final mission in July 1944, he shot down 2 P-43 Oscars over northern Burma. He returned to the United States in September 1944, survived the war, and remained in the Air Force for 30 years. He retired as a full colonel in 1971. The 80th Fighter Group, the Burma Banshees, continued operations until August 1945. The unit destroyed 413 Japanese aircraft in aerial combat and 147 on the ground. They lost 63 pilots killed or missing. Their death's head skull insignia became one of the most recognized markings in the China-Burma-India theater. The P-40 Warhawk never achieved the fame of the P-51 Mustang or P-47 Thunderbolt. It was slower than both. It couldn't fight effectively above 15,000 feet. By 1943, it was considered obsolete. But in the hands of determined pilots like Philip Adair, the rugged Curtiss fighter proved what mattered most in combat wasn't the aircraft specifications. It was the courage and skill of the pilot flying it. One pilot, one obsolete fighter, 64 enemy aircraft. December 13, 1943. Philip Adair proved that impossible odds mean nothing when someone refuses to quit. His solution to damage controls, flying alternately, inverted and upright for 11 minutes, defied every standard flying procedure. His inverted landing approach with gear extended had never been attempted before and was never repeated. That's the story of the Burma Banshees, and the Day 1 P-40 pilot disrupted an entire Japanese raid. If stories like this remind you why we preserve history, hit that like button, subscribe for more forgotten heroes, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss these stories. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from and whether anyone in your family served in the CBI theater. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next